Welcome to 11/6 News, here with you Danie Fox, and today you will find out. US troops leave Afghanistan's Bagram Air Base after nearly 20 years. The withdrawal of the troops from the Bagram Air Base marks the end of an era and a possible resumption of war? Have you heard that Minsk and Moscow are uniting in the Union state this year? The work on coordinating the Union programs for the integration of Belarus and Russia has reached the home stretch. Where does the COVID-19 virus come from? From bats that flew from space or from a laboratory in China? The famous Russian academician virologist Dmitry Lvov, what does he think about the likely epidemics of the future? Again to Britney Spears. Just one day after a judge denied Britney Spears' request to remove her father as a conservator of her estate, a wealth management firm said it wanted to withdraw from the agreement. COVID-19 cases around the world, with many people set to get together over the long holiday weekend. Quote, health officials say the highly contagious Delta variant is now in all 50 states in the US, and they're pointing to lagging vaccination rates in certain pockets of the country. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez reports for Today from Detroit.
Ahead of a holiday weekend when many Americans will be traveling and mingling, 2/3 of adults in the U.S. have now received at least one dose of a COVID vaccine. But despite that effort, the rolling average of new cases has actually ticked up 10% in the last week, driven by the highly transmissible Delta variant, which now accounts for a quarter of new cases.
We are now seeing surges in cases and indeed also hospitalizations due to what could be the spread of the Delta variant and low vaccination rates.
According to the CDC, 29 states lag behind the national rate when it comes to vaccinating adults. 3 states, Mississippi, Wyoming, and Louisiana, have yet to hit 50%.
In any part of America where a majority of people are unvaccinated, it's not only a threat to individual health, but it is actually a global threat because it's an opportunity for the virus to replicate and thus mutate.
Among those most at risk for that threat, the CDC director says 1,000 counties, mostly in the Southeast and Midwest, which have vaccination rates below 30%.
99.5% of deaths from COVID-19 in these states have occurred in unvaccinated people.
All 3 vaccines currently approved for emergency use provide a level of protection against current variants, including Delta. New this morning, Johnson & Johnson says its single-shot vaccine has demonstrated what it calls strong and persistent resistance to the variant in a study. The company also saying its vaccine provides antibody responses that actually grow over time, at least for the first 8 months. As a diabetic, 43-year-old Joshua Garza was eligible for a vaccine back in January, but opted not to get it. It's a decision he now regrets after contracting COVID and requiring a double lung transplant to save his life.
I had to say goodbye to my parents and my family and my son. And that's something you never should have to do. I survived, and I'll never be 100% in my health, but at least I have a chance now.
President Biden will be here in Michigan tomorrow in one of the counties with the highest vaccination rates in the state. He'll be encouraging Americans to get the shot, and on the 4th, he'll be hosting his largest in-person event since taking office, Craig.
Okay, more information on this and other news from the Today on their YouTube channel at the link provided in the line. Next news. Listen to what Russia 24 says about the COVID-19 situation. Quote, tonight Washington and London called on the World Health Organization to travel to China again in search of the source of the coronavirus. This is the opinion of the US mission at the headquarters in Geneva. The first trip of the delegation did not fulfill the task, and they say that now it is still necessary to conduct, quote, a transparent and a timely research phase. Quote, so look for the source of the virus on the market in Wuhan? Or, as they say in the USA, in the Wuhan laboratory. For a comment, Russia 24 turned to a prominent virologist, Academician Dmitry Lvov.
I don't think Biden is a very experienced virologist. I think not. All viral infections, about 150, came to humans from animals in the process of animal domestication. Viruses from wild animals have passed to domestic animals and from them to humans. Coronavirus is primarily a virus of bats. Someone got infected in the room where a bat spent a night, or entered a cave where these bats are in huge numbers. Perhaps she or he ate some kind of animal meat that has ecological ties to bats, and thus these were the first sources of infection. The infection then began to spread and turned them over time into a pandemic, and from my point of view, all this talk about artificial infection, about the fact that the Americans or the Chinese or someone else have brought this new breed of virus, is not worth a dime. Camels in Saudi Arabia were intermediate hosts for one of the coronaviruses. In China, such intermediate hosts could be civets. These are animals. If you remember Rikki Tikki Tavi, these are mongoose that hunt snakes.
What type of virus do you think could cause the next pandemic? Which way should we look? Maybe you need to look to some region?
This is, of course, first of all, Southeast Asia, where combined the high concentration of the population of India and China, and other countries where there is a very high number of domestic animals, birds, including chickens and so on, and plus to this, it is through these areas, in particular through China, that the flyways of birds pass. Millions of birds twice a year carry viruses adapted to them from continent to continent, and it is no coincidence that, for example, outbreaks of bird flu in China and in our country then immediately followed the flight of migratory birds. And so these outbreaks of the coronavirus in China originated in the fall, and autumn is the time of migration of bats.
From what type of influenza, hepatitis, smallpox virus to expect a blow?
First of all, you need to be afraid and be on the lookout against viral infections that are transmitted by the respiratory route, against which quarantine is almost impossible. And I refer to these viruses, smallpox, influenza and the viruses of coronavirus family. These are the three groups of infections. Well, there are quite a few influenza viruses. There were also many coronaviruses, like smallpox viruses, and with these infections, you need to keep your ear on your guard and be extremely vigilant.
More information on this and other news from the Russia 24 on their YouTube channel at the link provided in the line. Next news. The Bagram Air Base, the heart of the American military in Afghanistan, has been vacated by the American troops after 20 years. The withdrawal of the troops from the Bagram Air Base, quote, marks the end of an era and a possible resumption of war in the region built by the Soviets in the 1950s and commanded by the US military in the wake of the 9/11 attack. More details comes from the Indian World as One News.
The Bagram Air Base, the heart of the American military in Afghanistan, has been vacated by the American troops after 20 years. The withdrawal of the troops from the Bagram Air Base marks the end of an era and a possible resumption of war in the region. Built by the Soviets in the 1950s and commanded by the US military in the wake of the 9/11 attack, the Bagram Air Base today stands as a veritable citadel behind fences and blast walls. It is an hour's drive from Kabul, and Bagram is where the US military coordinated its air war and logistical support for its entire Afghan mission. It was here on a bullet-ridden Soviet-built airstrip surrounded by snow-capped Hindu Kush mountain range that New York City firefighters and police were flown to bury a piece of the World Trade Center back in December 2001.
According to the information that we have, American forces left Bagram Air Base last night without any coordination with the District Administrative Office, the Governor's Office, or other relevant administrations. This has not been officially coordinated and reported to us, but from the ground, we get this information from the situation in the area, as several looters, opportunists, and others stormed Bagram airfield this morning, and with a quick response from our district administration, we were able to foil their plans. The deployment of the army has started to take over the security posts and security towers previously guarded by Americans to have their presence in those areas for the security of Bagram Air Base.
Kabul residents have welcomed the withdrawal of the troops from Bagram. Many, however, remain concerned over the current situation in the country.
It's good that they are leaving the country. The bad thing is that the situation has turned bad in Afghanistan. When they were here, there were lots of people working. Now there are no jobs. People have lost their jobs.
We are neither happy nor upset about the withdrawal from Afghanistan. We had peaceful lives when the Americans were here. No one can say anything to them. They are returning to their homes. It has been a year that they have destroyed the whole area here. This used to be the wall of the Bagram airfield. Since they started the withdrawal, the situation has got worse. There is no work, there is joblessness, there is no business for people.
All right. More news from the WION could be found on their YouTube channel at the link indicated in the line. Just one day after a judge denied Britney Spears' request to remove her father as a conservator of her estate, a wealth management firm that was set to take over as co-conservator of the estate wants to be released from the arrangement. NBC national correspondent Miguel Almaguer reports for Today from Los Angeles.
More fallout this morning as Britney Spears tries to reclaim control of her life and her fortune. A financial management firm given joint control of Britney's money, along with her father Jamie, now says it wants out, citing Britney's recent public criticism of the conservatorship. The move comes after the pop star's explosive testimony last week, in which she called the conservatorship abusive and traumatizing, all of it throwing the process into even more turmoil. Scott Ron is a conservatorship attorney not involved in the case.
You're being asked to protect someone who, in Britney's case, very clearly needed protection when the conservatorship was initiated. So I think we have to look at Britney's situation from the time that she was first conserved and, frankly, how well she's doing now.
It comes just one day after a judge rejected Britney's November request to remove her father as a conservator of her $60 million estate. The court filing saying Spears remains unable to manage her financial resources or to resist fraud or undue influence. Years after a series of public breakdowns, Spears is now asking for her conservatorship to end. She says she's been medicated against her will, subjected to numerous psychiatric evaluations, and even prevented from removing a birth control device. Spears telling the court she didn't speak up sooner because she felt no one would believe her. After his daughter's bombshell testimony, Jamie Spears is now calling for an investigation into Britney's allegations, adding his daughter's personal life and medical treatment aren't under his control. This morning, a very public battle playing out over the very private life of Britney Spears.
Britney's legal battle is still playing out. In the coming days, she's expected to formally ask for every part of her conservatorship to come to an end. That could set the stage for even more testimony.
More news from the Today could be found on their YouTube channel at the link indicated in the line. Okay. Have you heard that Minsk and Moscow are uniting in the Union state this year? Quote, the work on coordinating the Union programs for the integration of Belarus and Russia has reached the home stretch. That was told by the State Secretary of the Union State at a meeting of the Interparliamentary Commission of the Republican Council and the Federation Council for Interregional Cooperation. More about that from the TV news agency of Belarus.
The State Secretary Dmitry Lvov emphasized the foundation of the work is the unconditional consideration of the national interests of the parties. It is aimed at strengthening the provision of the agreement on the creation of the Union State.
The government consistently does not forget this task and is working to improve the Union programs. Previously, we called them roadmaps, but the Union program is brighter and more accurate in conveying the results of this work. A huge layer of work is already behind. There are fundamentally fewer tasks ahead in terms of volume, but just as significant. Today at this stage of work, I think we have reached the home stretch.
Today, within the framework of the Interparliamentary Commission, senators have an extensive agenda. This is the introduction of model laws, digital technologies, issues and prospects for cooperation between business entities in the context of import substitution, ecology, and union programs.
Okay. More news from the TV news agency Belarus could be found on their YouTube channel at the link indicated in the line. In the end, I would like to end with light and unobtrusive music, but before that you need to know that all the news shown here have a link in the line. Just go there and find them. So be careful, take care of yourself, and don't lose your job during this difficult time.